Welcome to Buying and Beyond, the buying podcast that aims to entertain and inspire. We're Kate and Linz, and together we have over 30 years' experience in retail, including Accessorise and M&S to name a few high street names.
We've been through the highs and the lows, the ups and the downs of fashion retail buying and beyond, and we really want to share this with you.
This is a safe space for us to share our stories, tips and advice, and we have some friends joining us along the way to give us their thoughts and opinions too.
We hope this podcast will help anyone looking to get into the industry, as well as those already enjoying the wild world of retail buying, as many of these stories will hopefully feel very relatable. So grab your drink of choice, sit back and have a giggle with us.
Hi, and welcome to episode 8.
Wow, episode 8. So today we're going to chat about a really common task that most buyers carry out, a comp shop.
One of my favourite things to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really about how we gather our market data and take inspiration from retailers we sit with, but also out of reach shops that may set up a great concept that can be interpreted to your customer. It's really important to remember that this isn't copying or stealing ideas. It's gathering information to identify trends and also make sure you are relevant, not irrelevant, relevant in the marketplace.
Or find out if you are irrelevant. And therefore, what are you going to do to make yourself relevant?
And lastly, it helps to identify your unique selling point, understand a range structure, or particularly when looking at a new category. So, Kate, let's talk about our first memories of comp shopping when we were very junior. I think we touched upon street style in the very early episodes.
Oh, I loved
But we loved street style. I don't even know if you could do it these days, but...
Well, there's an element of people watching. I'm pretty sure... So street style we started doing, and then I remember seeing it in magazines.
Yeah, like Grazia and stuff.
Yeah, and they'd pick like 6 people on the streets and be like, so, that looked really cool, and be like, yeah, what are you wearing? Where's it from? What inspired your outfit, kind of thing. And we didn't go quite into that detail because we're not journalists and we don't really care.
Yeah.
But we do like what you're wearing.
Yeah.
And we would... So you'd take pictures of people that were wearing cool outfits, but also then you would identify trends and themes within those.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember going to London Fashion Week. I thought it was so cool. Didn't go into any shows, just stood outside.
You just hang outside, yeah. Oh, that was so funny.
But I did really enjoy it because you saw some people wearing some really
cool
really
stuff,
fun things.
hanging around Somerset House or Billingsgate Market. You know, like sometimes you see a celebrity.
Yeah. I'm not sure I ever did. But I definitely saw people wearing some really cool things, and then you could get some real idea of like some of the colours that might be coming through.
Definitely.
And I think people still do that a lot now. Like if you look at Sheer Luxe, if they're going to one of the fashion weeks, they'll be taking pictures of their outfits each day. And there's quite a lot more now
with social media. Yeah, 100%.
With outfit of the days and things like that. This was outfit of the day back in the day.
A long time ago, showing our age. I think there are other relatable ways to do it though. So for example, IKEA, they tend to go, their designers or product development teams go and live in people's houses for a week and see how they live. I
did not know that. That is so cool.
They go and see how they live. There was an amazing exhibition a few years ago. I went to Milan, Saloni Mobile. I hope I'm saying that right after my you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Saloni Mobile, which is in Milan. It's a really great show to go to if you're looking at interiors buying, so outdoor furniture, indoor furniture, all that kind of stuff. And they open up the whole of Milan, and all these shops put on like exhibitions and things like that. So IKEA had a huge exhibition there, and you went in and walked around, and they showed like their brand identity and the evolution of the brand and all the really cool things that they do. It's such an amazing brand. So yes, that's where I learned that really they go into people's houses and they see how they're living and like try and identify gaps in the way people are living and what solutions they can bring in to make things easier for them.
Which makes so much sense, like really understanding your customer. God, I would love to do that. That's like, I mean, my version of doing that is just pretending that I want to buy a house and going on Rightmove and requesting a viewing just so I can go and look around someone's cool house. That's taking it to a whole nother level.
It is.
Or going and staying in an Airbnb, a cool Airbnb, and just being like, oh my God. But yeah, same but different. Also, Milan, that is the place where you've got that beautiful tall building with all of the gardens on the outside, isn't it?
Yeah, by Philip building.
So, I mean, that's a good reason to go and see it anyway.
Yeah, it's amazing city. I love Milan. It's, yeah.
Well, there's lots of other places you could go to do comp shops.
Yeah.
So many great places in Europe. Also, so many great places in the UK.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, I mean, to be honest, often when we did street style, we would be UK based.
Oh yeah, when you're junior, you don't go outside the island.
No, you generally be like you'd generally be in London, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
predominantly. Or I mean, some of the other big cities are great, like Manchester, Bath, Brighton. You were telling me Newcastle, as well. It's a really good place
some
to
really
go.
Quirky little boutique places.
Do you know where is quite good in London now? It used to be really good. It used to be one of my favourite places to go in London, and then it went through a period where there was like nothing there. It was almost like ghost town. But I went
with it.
I went a couple. I know I should say what it is before I talk all about it. But I went the other week and it was really thriving. 7 Dials. I used to love it. Fell off the radar. Honestly, you'd walk down and
it was
there'd be
quite
like
touristy, and then
and then it emptied, completely emptied. And now there's actually loads of small boutiques,
like little pop-ups
and also like quite a few sort of more established brands, but like sustainable brands that maybe you've just seen online.
There is that kind of like revolution of pop-ups, isn't there? Is that the right way to just express it? I think the pop-up culture is really interesting.
It's a good way to sort of like test it.
Yeah, and also because online's becoming is ever changing and evolving as a space to be as a retailer. That's a good way to still have a bricks and mortar.
It's quite an aggressive market as well. Like, I definitely know that I've spoken to a few people who had some tough Christmas trading periods and Q4s because the advertising spend, the marketing spend that you were having to do, like your return on investment was low. Like, you were having to put a huge amount behind it, and actually there were some really large players from China, Temu, Shein, that were putting huge amounts of marketing money behind them that meant no one else could get a look in, and it really hampered some people. So
that's quite sad,
it is really sad, but it's definitely good for an online only to increase your brand and awareness to do a pop-up.
Yeah, and I think, this is not based on any data at all. People are getting back out there, though. They want to go shopping at the weekend again now after COVID. They don't just want to be online. They do want to be, in a space where
I think it's really important to touch and feel products.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I'm bored of scrolling.
Yes.
Like, I've got scroll fatigue. I want to go and I want to see a product and touch a product, and I'm also fed up of getting crap quality product.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to go out and check that I'm actually getting value for money here rather than just buying something that like looks good online. And also, I guess because we're at that point where people are starting to want to go back out, but so many shops have pulled out, there's actually a lot of spare space there, and no one's quite ready maybe to...
Or got the investment.
Yeah, to put down the money, because sometimes those rents are still bloody high, and no one wants to be caught into like a long lease.
No.
So a pop-up can be a really good way to work for both, for you to test it, and for if there's an empty place, then great, get in that space.
Yeah, absolutely. I really loved going to Brighton. I think Brighton was always one of my favourite ones to go, especially for jewellery. Like, it was brilliant for looking at going down the lanes and seeing all those sort of quirky brands pulled together, and rummaging around the vintage sections as well. Like, there's a lot you can get from old and reused stuff, to recycle those trends and
ideas of like colours,
packaging,
prints. And there's so much of like really lovely vintage prints around now.
Yeah.
Like, even just in homeware, like I love a really clean aesthetic. I do, because my life is quite stressful right now with juggling like just life and babies and
Yeah.
children and all of that.
Husbands.
And husbands. Picking up after your husbands. And so just having, like, I've been getting really just, I just want to, what's that name of that Japanese lady?
Oh, yeah. Begins, I know who you mean.
You know who I mean.
Begins with K? Or surname begins with K? Yeah, I know who you mean.
Yeah.
She's got a great book.
MK? Does it begin with an M and a K? Anyway.
I'm not sure. I'm going to Google it.
We'll Google it. But I hope you know who I mean. I'm a couple of years too late on this because she was a really big trend a few years ago. But I didn't need to cleanse my life then. Now I'm all about wanting to just like, I just want a simple life. But on the other hand, I'm so inspired by all of these like different prints and textures and all these lovely sort of like pieces that are being like look like you've been traveling the world.
Yeah.
Or have been handed down. So all these like lovely bits, and I quite like the aesthetic of like a busy shelf. I just don't know if I can have that in my life right now.
I know, it's almost like sort of everyone does on Instagram, like reality versus what you would want.
That's me right now.
It's very difficult. Yeah, and I also think Bath is really good as well. Bath is very good for the gifting market. I think that there's a lot. Again, I suppose it's quite similar to Brighton, but it's got that kind of cutesy boutique vibe to it. It's quite nice to wander around there, and
then it's quite nice to go to some of the big cities for the flagships as well, just to see what are the real big brands doing in their very top stores. Manchester, I found a really great place to do that, and actually I was really impressed with Edinburgh too.
Yeah, Edinburgh's great.
There's a lot of big retailers there with a big footprint, and that can be really good to see. And
finding a lot more sort of made in the UK brands. I feel like you find that quite a lot in Edinburgh, which is great because obviously heritage is really important, if that's just something that you're looking at from a sustainability point of view as well. Some great places in the UK.
I also find, and I also find that I can find inspiration anywhere. So I know we're talking about comp shops specifically, but I think you don't always have to go to like that hot destination for the year, Like, although that is a big win, and let's talk about like overseas places and some of our favourite places overseas. But I definitely remember as a BA, like you say, you don't leave the island, and that can be a bit frustrating. But I think it's really important to remember that, like, you can get inspiration, like, I don't know, watching TV.
Yeah.
Like, Traitors.
Oh, I haven't watched
God.
it, Everyone's talking about it. I feel like I'm completely out of the loop.
Yeah, you need to jump on it and get on it.
Okay.
And oh my God, Claudia's outfits.
Really?
Oh my gosh, serious knitwear envy. And it's going to boom Scotland's tourism. Like, every time we watch it, my husband's like, oh, Edinburgh's just so beautiful. And it is. I mean, they must have recorded it in the summer or something because it's constantly sunny. Like, the weather. Well, I say
the weather is good in Edinburgh. It has such a bad rap.
It did rain.
For its weather.
It did rain on a couple of episodes. But on the whole, like, the scenery when they come in with the drone over the castle and over the beautiful hills, it just looks absolutely stunning. But yeah, so you can get inspiration everywhere.
Like Killing Eve, that was very couture,
and you just see it all filter through.
100%.
I mean, going for dinner somewhere, like, I don't know, like
from an interiors point of view, absolutely, like, people are stepping that up.
Like, what are the vases like, or candle holders, things like that. And I just find walking around my hometown, or going to stay with friends, like, if you just keep your eyes open and look around, like, you can be inspired.
And you've got all the usual websites. Pinterest is obviously everybody's Bible. You've got WGSN if your company's lucky enough to have a subscription to that. All the workshops on there. Trend Bible, there's so much out there that you can look at,
and so many smaller, sort of more niche, design agencies and trend forecasters as well. Which is really exciting to see.
Yeah, definitely.
And you can also do comp shopping when you go to trade fairs, particularly overseas, right? We've talked about this quite a lot. Like, it's unlikely when we go overseas that we're going to source somebody to work with.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're going to somewhere like the States, it's much more you're looking to see what the inspiration is.
I think it's really important that we look at what the other markets are doing. So we, going going and looking at what the US are doing and what's going on in Europe, it might not be, very often isn't the right thing for the UK. However, they might have tapped into something that we've not thought about.
It could be the way that they've done the visual merchandising of a certain area.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh gosh, we normally have that strapped to the wall, but actually making a central feature of that.
I mean, the States are great for store experience. They really do put so much effort into that, and they are very much about, bringing in their customer and giving them a really, amazing sort of visual inspirational journey. So especially again for the seasonal categories, I think it's brilliant.
And they, in the US, they do things bigger.
Yeah, bigger
than we ever
not
could.
necessarily better, but bigger.
But always bigger. And it is fascinating to see. They have the space to trial things as well, which can be really interesting. And if you're a brand, if you're a branded supplier or you work with brands, that can be a really good way as well to find out what retailers are similar to you, or not even similar to you necessarily, but are stocking the same things that you are. But what other products have they got in case there's other areas that you want to branch into?
Yeah.
It's
good for product extension, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Just recently, I went to France, and I had never heard of this retailer before in my life, because I've been so centred on the UK market because all the stores were in the UK, and it was amazing. Oh my God, I lost myself in this store because we went to a flagship, and it was amazing to see the products that they'd mixed. They had a real core offering was the same, but they had lots of extensions, product extensions that sat alongside it that I maybe wouldn't have necessarily thought that could be something you can go into. And maybe it's not right for the UK customer right now, but it was interesting to see how they'd laid that out. And that's definitely something that, you park for later.
Definitely. I think it also be brave. Contact these brands out there in America, in France, in Europe, in I can't think of another continent. And ask to meet with their buyers and get them to show you around the stores. Like, quite often they're quite happy to, because you're not competition, because they know that you have a completely different setup, a completely different way of living your life. Every country has a different way of living their lives. So, and you can share information with each other. It's really inspiring. Sometimes they might also be working with a factory that you can both start working with together, and you have that buying power, and it's again hammering back to that sort of collaborative way of working with each other, helping each other and not going against each other, because that's where you're going to see your growth, and that's where you're going to see your you're going to remain in the game, and
you can bounce ideas off each other, and then ideas grow from having those conversations. I think we've learned that just from sort of like spending more time working from home. Actually hybrid working is great, because yes, you need that time to work from home, but there's nothing better sometimes than getting into the office, seeing people and having those conversations, like those tea point talks. Of things that you wouldn't necessarily, passing comments. Oh, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, I'm going to for a short break to, I don't know, Verona. Oh, I never thought of going to Verona. Why? What's that like? And it spurs something on. So in general, things to look for when you're comp shopping: price.
Price. So you obviously always want to see where you sit in price. I think price has become quite sensitive with all the volatility of cost price increases and shipping and all that kind of stuff. So it's never been more important to look and see what everyone is doing. And most people are kind of reacting in the same way. And, we can all learn from each other on how we're doing that and how we're positioning that.
Because you really need to balance it at the moment. You've got this real cost of living crisis. And particularly through the winter, I've been shocked at the number of people that have needed help and support, and that I've seen on local kind of like groups saying I can't feed my family this week. Like, it's really, really shocked me to the core. I've been really quite surprised. But then you also have this side of like people wanting to be more sustainable, and actually pay the right amount for the goods.
Yeah, for something that they know where it's come from, where it's been sourced from. It's quite good quality.
Yeah, and that business can be sustainable from an economic point of view as well, because it is not sustainable to keep selling something at cut price. You won't be able to continue. You'll just absolutely hemorrhage your money, and you'll be out. But also,
I think we've seen that from some casualties, that have gone from the high street.
Yeah.
That this year and unfortunately will probably continue to leave us.
So getting your price points right is really important. Having your kind of your good, better, best. Having your sort of your lead-in price, having your exit price, and making sure that everything is kind of like a value for money.
Yeah.
You get what it's worth.
Also, more than ever, you need an exit plan. You need exit plans for up your sleeve these days to trade your stock more than ever, because things just keep changing erratically.
Yeah.
So,
and more people are talking about buying less. So there's this sort of like rule of 5. Only buy 5 new items in a year. That's kind of terrifying in a way if you think that your entire customer base is going to go from,
buying 15 things
to just 5. And where are they going to buy those? So I think being careful and clever with your pricing is going to be really important, not just from like a customer facing point of view, but also from a profit, how much are you making point of view. If people are going to start shopping less and less and less, then how are you going to sustain your sales?
Yeah, exactly.
And your numbers,
And how
it's
are you
going to be less
keep
about
your customer?
Yeah, and it's going to be potentially less about quantity and more about quality, but you can't suddenly hike because that will put your customers off if they suddenly walk in and there's a 50% increase on all your prices. Anyway, we digress into
we could
pricing.
talk about this for hours, couldn't we?
So other things that you need to look at are sort of like your packaging concepts, displays.
I love that one. Packaging's always been...
your passion.
Well, it's just always been really interesting to me because quite often...
Can make or break,
but you'd be shocked at how much packaging costs versus the product. So sometimes it's more than the product, which is hilarious.
And crazy.
Yeah.
Is that packaging even like kept?
Yeah, that's the other side of it, isn't it? I think that I've definitely tried to engineer into my ranges as much as we can, bringing on that sustainability message, getting rid of as much plastic as possible, and trying to make the product reusable, recyclable, etc., etc., etc. I think that's definitely a huge topic we should talk about again in another probably big episode. But in terms of actual packaging, there's so many inspiring places to go for packaging. Like, I wouldn't rule anything out. Like, go to a chocolate shop or go to, I don't know, brain blip now. Like something completely unrelated to the product type that you're buying, that you can be inspired by, like, I don't know, some kind of quirky hardware store or can't think now off the top of my head.
I think those two are great.
Some kind of like gifting shop, Don't be too rigid. Don't be like, okay, so I need to find some packaging for a pen. I'm just going to go to a stationer's to be inspired. No. Go elsewhere. See what else is out there,
It's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because people are getting rid of more packaging.
Yeah.
And that does feel like the right thing in some ways. But at the same time, how do you still sell your product? How do you communicate to the customer what that product actually is if you don't have the right level of packaging? So, and how do you entice them into wanting it?
Yeah.
So packaging is really important. Some of the other things that you'd be looking for, particularly I guess if you're looking online, because comp shopping online, you don't have to be getting out as much as we love to. That's a really good place actually to be looking at pricing rather than just trying to like get it all in your head. Like pricing, I'd definitely say is something easier to do online. And with that, you need to be looking at delivery charges as well. And what's the customer journey online? That's really, really important. Like, how are products grouped?
Yeah.
Because how you shop online can be very different to how you shop
in a store.
But
then still having that element of brand handwriting online versus the store. Like, I think a lot of retailers make the mistake of going quite big on their, like, putting a lot of investment into their online, but then they haven't thought about the journey in store and the journey online and linking it.
How does it link? Yeah, sometimes they have completely different teams. And they're not linked up at all. And you need to have that synergy, otherwise it can feel like something completely different when you're online.
I think the supermarkets do that quite well. I think there's still quite an element of, you know, I don't know, sort of, it feels like the supermarket.
Place.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
They're consistent, like, you know, with their imagery and things like that. I also think I think generally online is actually also a really great topic, probably for us just to have an entire episode on, because customer journeys are fascinating online and the insights that you can get. And so often I find, no, I'm going to keep it. Are you going to keep it
under wraps?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it for the next step, and I'm going to keep
of a cliffhanger, guys.
I'm going to keep to compshop.
Okay.
The importance of sending everyone out.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So I think quite a lot of the time, the role of compshop falls to the buyers and the buyers' assistants and the BMAs. However, it's so important to go out with your merchandiser, go out with your designer, even go out with marketing together. You know, like I've had so many great experiences just standing in the store with the, you know, the marketeer on my department, and we'll both stand there, and she'll have a completely different eye. So we'll be in the, you know, she'll be looking at the point of sale and the execution and the journey, and I'll be thinking, oh, that's a great product concept, and then we'll stand there and we'll be like, oh my god, how can we bring this to life together? Because it is, again, collaboration. Like, everybody needs to talk to each other. You can't just have a marketing department going off on, you know, working in a silo to the buying department. You've got to come together, and that's where dreams are made of, guys. You know, that. So, but I get
one
so
team,
much more.
One dream.
I mean, I say that far too much, so I'm glad you said that. But I do think that you get so much out of that, just being there together, and then I'll start thinking the way she starts thinking, and she'll start thinking the way that I start thinking as well, so we can, like, transfer our skills a little bit, and, like, you know, she'll develop her on, and it develops me on as well. So it's so important to get out there together
and keep you aligned.
Yeah.
And just in general, it is important to get out to store.
Yeah.
Like, no matter how busy you are, it can be one of those things you're like, I really need to get out, and the next thing you know, it's 6 o'clock, and you're like, okay, it's too late.
Or you haven't been out for 3 months.
Yeah. And there's always a reason you can put it off. But honestly, nothing can be more important, particularly if you've got a bricks and mortar store, than seeing your products in store, in situ, firsthand, as your customer will see them.
Yeah.
I think that is an ultimate. And the next level is just being aware of what other people are doing.
Yeah.
And as you say, even if you've just got an online retailer, going out and seeing a store experience.
Yeah.
And then trying to understand, like, how could you then translate that into your online store.
Yeah, for sure.
In fact, we both heard something the other day that shocked us to our core.
I had quite a strong reaction to it, and I won't repeat what I said, but...
So I saw something on social media, Jamie Lang's comment about not looking at other people. So he was very much saying, like, you know, don't look at your competition, just concentrate on what you're doing, believe in yourself. Now, I agree with the whole, you know, stay true to yourself and stay in your lane. But I think you need to know what's going on around you.
Yeah.
You know, it's super important to have that awareness of what other people are doing. You know, are you on the mark, off the mark? Are you too similar, too different? Like, where do you sit for pricing? If you haven't got an awareness of what other people are doing, you are completely blind.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, I agree with you. I think obviously I'm trying to, like, backtrack now my strong reaction. We did see that out of context, so we don't know what the whole conversation was. But I just think that, yeah, you do need to have a really strong brand identity and be very unique in some senses. But, yeah, you absolutely have to know, oh, where do I sit?
Okay, so on that note, I think we need some retail therapy. All the ABs were allowed to go to Paris Fashion Week to take photos, to do street style, comp shop for ideas, styling and VM, etc. At the Gare du Nord station, one of the girls got a call and was really seriously responding, which, okay, and passed the phone to another girl, who then sat down and then hung up.
Oh, God.
So it turns out she'd handed in her notice the night before to her buyer,
right,
who then that morning passed it to the director, who then insisted that girl had to come back from the trip immediately.
Oh, wow.
That she shouldn't be allowed on the trip, and they wanted her back in that office that day.
No.
They literally just arrived. So they had to buy her an extra ticket to go
what
back
waste of money.
and get into the office, which probably would have been like, end of the day? Like, sit at her desk for a few minutes and then go home. How embarrassing.
Oh, my God.
And I was like, oh,
That's
God,
so
get over
petty.
it, isn't it? Oh, no, that's ridiculous. That would seriously stress me out.
No, that would stress me out massively. I mean, you know, you come and go with jobs, and
there needs to be a flexibility, and like, she may leave to go somewhere else and come back.
Yeah, exactly.
With more experience. Like,
and now she won't come back.
Yeah, don't limit
and you've
that.
lost someone brilliant potentially.
Oh no, it's a real shame when things can. I mean, again, another episode, I'm sure, but when
got so many more episodes.
Relationships go sour like that, it's just so unnecessary.
Leave on a good note, but on both sides, I'd say.
I've got another one. Before being able to take photos on your phone, and also just being able to take photos of everywhere and anywhere and share it all over social media, it was much more faux pas to take photos in shops. And to make it even harder, we had to use an actual camera.
Oh, I remember that.
Talk about subtle. I remember being stalked by security around River Island on Oxford Street until he spoke in his walkie-talkie, which looked like he was asking for backup. So I scarpered quickly out the shop. My heart was racing so fast. A bit of an adrenaline rush.
Oh my gosh, I do remember that. Do you know what? I remember working for a retailer and we were looking at luggage, and I think we must have been in like Selfridges or somewhere like that. And I'm there with like my BMA or something, and we're getting all the luggage down and like literally like lining it up, like
photos of
good,
all
better,
of it.
best, you know.
Range building in their shop.
Range building in Selfridges. You know, it can get like quite scary, can't it? Like,
I remember those adrenaline rushes of like,
you feel like you're shoplifting, but obviously you're not.
But you're not,
No.
yeah. And now I don't think it's as much of a problem because people got their phones out and taking photos left, right, and centre. But that fear still stays with me.
Yeah.
And I always think, what's my backstory? I'm taking photos, sending it to my mum because I
doing
want
a project.
No, I'd always be like, oh, it's I really want that for my birthday, so I'm sending it to my mum. Or like my brother would like that for his birthday, so I'm sending a picture of it to my mum.
Yeah,
like,
I'm not quite sure what I want to buy yet.
Yeah,
so I'm just gonna take a few photos. I'm gonna go home.
And I'm like, why do I need a backstory?
Yeah,
like people take photos everywhere these days.
I know, crazy. Crazy.
Anyway, right, let's finish up on this. So, what about presenting this information back? I guess finding the best way. I mean, one thing to say, like, definitely share it. Share your finds and your ideas. Like, it can be so easy once you've been out and about because you've found it so hard to get that time to go out and about. You've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, you're like, when am I going to pull this presentation together?
You're like filled to the brim with all your ideas.
Yeah.
But then you get back to the office and you're distracted or sidetracked by like another shipping disaster, probably,
yeah, exactly.
or like a sampling mishap because there's always 1 or 100.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to like make sure that you plan in that time to like follow up, particularly like bringing a team, as we've said, like on the journey. So like loop them in on your finds. Write those design briefs as soon as you can. Like bring those ideas to life.
Yeah, 100%.
Like before you get bogged down with like
remembering
BAU
what you were excited about. Sometimes I send my
remember.
voice notes or just notes whilst I'm travelling back. Like if I'm travelling back on a train or a plane or whatever, I'm sending myself notes back, what we saw, how inspired we were. You know, just I think the best thing to do as well when you're trying to present this back is pulling it together in stories. So, you know, having all your product concept ideas together, having all the point of sale together, looking at all the sort of pricing notes that you've made, pull that together. So really try and tell a story of what you found and where, and grouping things together and coming up with the sort of real key takeaways of what you found. Yeah,
definitely key takeaways. And I'd say if you're a BA or an AB, check in with your buyers how they want to see it, because it might be that they really want the main focus of your comp shop to have been price, so therefore lead with it, an Excel spreadsheet, look at the price comparisons of what you currently have versus what the offering is, benchmarking it. They might want to see it by retailer. or they might want to see it by concept or story, or they might want to see it by trend.
Yeah.
So check in, and do they want a PowerPoint? How many images do they want? Do they just want a quick one-pager?
Sometimes when you put too many images in, it is so overwhelming.
Yeah.
And then if you go too deep into lots of different categories as well, it's like, well, what was your top line message here, you know?
Yeah. So you took a picture of the entire store. Like, what do you actually like?
Yeah.
What are your real findings?
Yeah.
So that's super, super, important. So we've talked about needing key takeaways. This is one of my absolute favourite tasks to do, as we've said in the beginning. And I think we both agree, like, as long as we find the time to go out, we always come back feeling super, super inspired. So what are our key takeaways today?
Okay. So number 1, it's important to get out to stores no matter how busy you are. Number 2, inspiration can be found everywhere. Number 3, share your finds and ideas and make sure you plan in some time to follow up before you get bogged down with all the everyday.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for listening. And tune in next week where we'll be talking about all things management. So managing up, managing down, and just managing to get by.
That's a good one. I like it.
Bye.
See you next week. Please like and subscribe and leave a review.
And if you already have, thank you. We all need a bit of retail therapy, and this is the perfect time for you to offload about that super cringeworthy story. We would love to hear from you all, your funny stories and experiences, or even any dilemmas. And maybe we can help, or at least find someone who can. And don't worry, we will keep these anonymous and remove any names and brands.
We would also love to hear from you on any topics you would like us to talk about. Please send all of these into buyingandbeyond@gmail.com or drop us a DM via our Instagram page @buyingandbeyond.